National Association of Software and Services Companies, Nasscom successfully hosted the 29th edition of its flagship event, the Nasscom Technology and Leadership Forum 2021. The forum was hosted virtually for the first time and was focused on the overarching theme, shaping the future towards a better normal. The event aims to achieve three key objectives: celebrating technology, which has served as a backbone to boost businesses during the crisis, drawing a roadmap towards building a hyper-digital future, and bringing out the importance of trust and responsible technology in this hyper-virtual world. At the three-day event, industry and business leaders shared their thought and perspective on the way forward for the Indian businesses. Devjani Ghosh, President Nasscom, in a fireside chat with Arvind Krishna, Chairman and CEO IBM, discussed how technology has now shifted from being just an enabler to a differentiator, how reimagining technology and investing in it has and will continue providing returns and in turn shape a brighter future.
It's been a fascinating day. We've heard some fascinating speakers, and the next session is going to get even better. As Praveen said, we are talking about the reinvention of technology today. How is the technology industry changing? When I think back at 2020, what stood out for me in 2020 was this major mindset shift that we saw with respect to technology. Many say that technology was the lifeline to survival for both individuals as well as for businesses. But I believe that it is set up to play an even more important role, that of leading our economic recovery. The opportunities ahead of the industry are tremendous, but it will require companies to rethink their playbook and their strategy completely. The one thing that we know for sure is that status quo will not cut it. And no one better to talk about the opportunities ahead and the reinvention of technology and the tech industry than the one and only Arvind Krishna, CEO, IBM. Arvind, welcome back to Nasscom. Thank you for taking the time today.
Oh, Devjani, it's a pleasure to be here with you and with Nasscom.
Thank you. We'll dive straight into it, Arvind. And, you heard the Prime Minister talk about, or rather, he set us a big challenge. He said that India has to become a leading hub for innovation and for talent in this new era. I passionately believe that this is something we have to aspire to, and we have to figure out a way to make it happen. Would love to hear your thoughts about the vision and what is that one or two things that India has to get right or the tech industry has to get right in order for us to turn this vision to a reality.
I think we are at a unique moment on the planet. Certainly there is the crisis from the health which led to an economic crisis. But in crisis there comes opportunity. And so the alignments of global ecosystems is happening right now. I think over the next 1 or 2 or 3 years, these things don't happen in days. You will get an alignment of ecosystems. As you get this alignment of ecosystems, the same way as Nasscom led the way for India to grow a really robust and vibrant IT services industry, this is the moment where you can step that up by an order of magnitude. So if that's the opportunity, and you begin to talk about numbers that are in the trillions of dollars of global productivity that comes from these underlying capabilities, the question becomes, what role does India want to play? Yes, obviously the aspiration is massive, but now what role do we want to play precisely? So number one comes the ability to innovate. That means regulations. What people don't talk about innovation, they look at the positive side of innovation. There is also a risk. So innovation means only 1 in 3 ideas is likely to succeed. 2 out of 3, I wouldn't call them fail. You always learn from things. As a computer scientist, I would say you put ideas on the shelf that didn't work and you come back to them later, but they don't give an economic return in the near term. What happens under regulations and policy that allow for that failure to happen? And that is a risk-taking in business terms for the business people out there. By the way, the 1 in 3 that succeed more than pay for the other 2 and 3. Yeah. But inside the culture of an enterprise or firm, you've got to allow teams to be able to fail sometimes. But I would always call fail early and fail smart. Don't go on for a long time. That's underlying in culture and this thing. The second part, how do you build the skills? I mean, you just look at artificial intelligence. We claim $16 trillion or 14. That's the range. That's a pretty tight range in global productivity by 2030 or 2035. In order to get that, you're going to need tens of millions of people trained on how to use and deploy AI, not invent AI. Let's park that as a very small number of people. Well, where is that going to come from? And so if I look at what the Prime Minister has been doing and what we've been doing with the government's encouragement, working with NITI Aayog on programs like Sam Shiksha to go do digital training of people. Because I would assert you're not going to get so many trained faculty and instructors everywhere. But can we use this moment to also do digital education? Not to displace or replace colleges and schools, but to augment them so that people come out with the right skills. Look, I remember, I'm now going back and really aging myself, 40 years ago, I went to a tiny little school in the Nilgiris in India for my final high school years, and I wanted to prepare for engineering exams. I did that by correspondence. That's the equivalent of digital today, right? So,
wow.
Right? Because the level of math and physics you needed for those, I did it, it was fine. The mail worked, you did it, you went back and forth, but you needed access to expertise, teaching, pushing, cajoling. Today, all of that will be considered to be digital. And by the way, I think digital is 10 times better. So I look at that and I say, that's the way you amplify and you create scale. And that is what India has to do.
Let me talk a little bit about the industry. So we just announced, in fact, a few days back, the 2020 report card for the industry. And Nasscom does this on every year. And I'm very proud to say it wasn't a big surprise, but it definitely felt good to see that we came back to a growth trajectory by the end of year. So net, we've emerged not just as a growth industry, but also a creator of jobs, employer of jobs. And we did a bit of a CEO survey as part of this, and the CEOs are super positive. Super positive. I have never seen such overwhelmingly positive feedback ever, frankly, because they're always very cautiously optimistic. But this time round, more than 70% felt the future is going to be better. Tech spends are growing. The only two risks that came up were cybersecurity and vaccine delivery timelines. Those were the only two risks that they called out. So let me pause here and say, Arvind, do you agree? And are you as excited and optimistic about the future? And what are those pocket of opportunities that you see that excite you the most?
Yeah, so great questions, Devjani. So let me try to take them in order. First, the industry, then the risks. By the way, on the risks, I completely agree with your CEO survey. I think cybersecurity, I'll call it out, I think is the risk of this decade above all others. By the way, it shouldn't be a surprise. Just to help your audience, when land was the thing, countries fought wars with each other. When money in banks became the issue, you had bank robbers, embezzlement, fraud, and so on. Now that we're moving to a economy based on technology, and I'll come back to that point, then cyber becomes the way that either you can have nation states conduct effectively cyber warfare on each other, or criminals using cyber to steal effectively, because data is the currency now, no longer just money. So as you go through that, it shouldn't be a surprise. And so nations need to think about, are they going to put the same effort on cyber that they put on physical security and monetary security? Just think about the underlying expenses. Well, on physical, it would be called defense and police, right? You think about that, and then you add all of what local companies spend on physical security and locks and cameras and all of that. And so I don't think cyber has yet penetrated the consciousness, but it is more dangerous than physical and monetary.
Lastly, Arvind, one quick question. At a personal level, one habit that changed for you in the pandemic and that you will never give up on?
I think way more one-on-ones with people. So we all did a lot of one-on-many meetings. I think what the pandemic has taught me is you've got to do a quick check-in with people. And the second thing is we used to always often insist on face-to-face meetings because the belief was that creates it. I've really come to the conclusion. Bringing somebody in face-to-face, especially inside, for a 1 hour or 2 hour meeting is useless. Think through your protocols of how do you make sure they're included when some are remote and some are local. And that habit, I don't think is going to change. So I think we're going to become a much more distributed enterprise. Maybe that will result in a better sustainability and climate also because we'll put less people on airplanes and trains and cars.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't think it's going to be complete. So I will say it will become a hybrid world.
Hybrid,
There will be some coming traveling, but maybe not as much as before.
I've been such a pleasure talking to you. Been a fascinating 30 minutes. I have learned so much. Thank you so much, and I hope the next time you talk to us, we can have you in person with us, and I really look forward to catching up again and soon. Thank you so much.
As do I, Debjani. Thank you very much.
Next session of Nasscom Technology and Leadership Forum 2021. Debjani Ghosh, President Nasscom, and Julie Sweet, CEO Accenture, explore how organizations can emerge stronger by embracing change in ways that ensure its benefits to all stakeholders, that is, their customers, people, shareholders, partners, and communities.
Welcome to Nasscom Technology and Leadership Forum, Julie. It is such a privilege to have you with us today. And before we dive into the topic of the day, I'm going to take the liberty to tell you a small little story that involves you, but that you do not know about. So whenever I get some time, I like to spend it mentoring young girls, women, etc. And one of these sessions was towards the end of 2019. Around that time, your announcement had just come out. And I usually start these sessions by getting them to write out what is their biggest dream. And then we get into a discussion about dreams and ambition, etc. So that day I started it the same way. I asked them to write out what is their biggest dream. And then I told them, take that piece of paper and crumple it or tear it into a million pieces and just throw it away. And I had so many confused faces looking at me saying, what happened to her? And I was like, just throw it away. Because our dream benchmark, our dream landscape has just got totally disrupted. And then I told them your story. I told them about your news. And I said, do you know that the world's biggest tech giant has a new CEO? And it's a she. And these are underprivileged girls, so they may not have access to all the news. So I could see the eyes sort of growing bigger and bigger because they have heard about Accenture. And we got into a discussion. And by the end of that session, every single girl tore up the dream that she had written in the beginning of the class and rewrote a dream. And Julie, I have to say it was one of the most inspiring conversations I have had because I was blown away with their power to think big. If they just, were told that it's okay to think big. So I call it the Julie effect, and I've been dying to share that story with you. So I'm so thankful I got this opportunity to do so.
Oh, Debjani, that really touches me. So thank you for sharing. That's really inspiring to me. We have Rekha Menon, who's our leader in India, who is she's actually been someone who mentored me when I first came to Accenture. And I know that she is similarly very dedicated, not just to women, but also to all forms of diversity. We do a lot in Accenture. But at the end, it's those moments with leaders who take the time that I think really make a difference. So thank you for sharing that. But more importantly, thank you for doing that for those young girls. I mean, I look at my own life, and I had a lot of those moments that helped me get here because someone took time. Right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you can't stop that.
Absolutely. And, that also takes us to our topic today. You rightly said that we have a golden opportunity to rebuild the future together. And as we rebuild the future, we have to ensure it's better, right? And one of the things I think we as an industry have to get right is ensuring that it is more responsible. So let's get into that a bit, Julie. But before I talk about building a responsible business, I do want to ask you a little personal question, which is, the pandemic has impacted all of us, each and every one of us, in so many different ways. I think it brought about some fundamental changes in how we think, our worldview. So as a leader, what is your, if you have to sum up 2020 in a few words, what is your key takeaway? And what does it mean for you? Any changes that it brought about in you?
I would say Accenture was a place that we really, we've always prided ourselves on thinking about people from both a personal and professional level. But the pandemic, that shared experience, but also the necessity has, I think, taken it to a totally different level that I really want us all, not just at Accenture, but collectively, I think will change. And it's certainly changed, myself and how I think about, others. And I think that's the really great upside for what has been such a terrible situation for so many people.
Absolutely. Cannot agree more with you. Julie, you're one of the biggest advocates for responsible business. Right? But a lot of CEOs are still debating about whether responsible business and profitable business are opposite to each other, or do they go hand in hand? Is it an and story, or is it an or story, either or story? So if you could share a little bit about why do you care so much about building responsible businesses? Why is it important? And do CEOs have to choose between profitable business and responsible business?
Well, that's a great question. Let me start with your second. So I'm going to give you a prediction that we're making. So back in 2013, we were the first company that said every business would be a digital business. Mm-hmm. And I remember it because everyone argued with us at the time, like lots and lots of, industry, like we're not a digital business. And of course, it's clear that we were right. And today what our prediction is that every business will be a sustainable business. And by sustainable, we mean that in the broad sense. And why do I start there? Because it really goes to the heart of your question about do you have to choose? Is we believe that being a sustainable business it makes you actually more profitable and more successful. And we just published research that said that those companies who have combined sustainability into their business strategy are 2.5 times more successful than those have not. Now, it's still small in terms of those who have actually successfully done that, but the data is showing that. And of course, the data backs up what we know, right? Is sustainable businesses are ones where you are constantly reskilling your people and that of course makes you more agile, more ability to adjust. Sustainable businesses are more efficient from an energy perspective. They're more efficient in how they use resources, which by the way, those efficiencies go into productivity, into costs. And we all exist and have been reminded by that in a world where, the pandemic reminds just how connected we are and how much health matters. And I think the big focus on climate is because what seemed unthinkable came true in the pandemic, and you start to look at the climate issues with a different lens in terms of, the potential. And so we really believe, right, that every business will become a sustainable business. And the opportunity as a company is to differentiate, to get there first and be more successful. And that financial performance comes because employees care about it and customers care about it, and there's an effect on the bottom line. And we certainly have seen that. We're very proud that we're leading the industry in our own commitments, for example, around climate, right? We're going to be, by 2025, net carbon emissions will be zero, 100% recycling of our waste, and a significant reduction in our water usage. Something in India, we're already recycling our water. We're at 75% recycling of our waste. Right, we're making huge progress in using renewables in our centers, and we know that not only do our clients care about it, but we're attracting great people who want to be a part of a company that has these kinds of values. And so the idea of both delivering value and having values is really important, as we think about our future.
It's been a fascinating conversation, and my biggest takeaway, Julie, everything you talk about, the importance of people in enabling or in achieving any goal that a company sets out it just comes out so strongly in everything that you say, for me, that's the biggest takeaway. Julie, this is one conversation that, we will never have enough time for. We just can continue to talk about on this topic. And I do hope that you will give us the opportunity to have a second round of discussion sometime very soon, and hopefully in person once we are all done with the pandemic. But thank you so much.